So in this video, we're going to go ahead and use some containers to make some advanced layouts and really build out our portfolio page. So the first thing I need to do is, I don't like this section, I'm going to go ahead and delete it and add a new one. In this new one, I'm going to go ahead and just click plus and use our flex. Perfect. So now I just have one singular container, as you can see, inside of our portfolio section, sandwiched between our header and of course our footer. I'm going to go up to the top. Now, I'm going to go ahead and build kind of a more advanced layout where there's going to be an image and a title and a text area, maybe a button below it or some icons. So a whole bunch of stuff happening. So I'm going to go ahead and add a container in here. So I've got this so far. That's good. And I'm going to go up to here and grab an image. Actually, we're going to even be a little bit fancier. We're going to go container, another container inside of it. This is going to be the image. I'll show you in a minute how to do that. I'm going to drop a heading inside here as well. And a text editor. Looks pretty cool. And let's just go ahead and add, why not, we'll add a little button below it as well. Now, let's go ahead and start building this out. So the first one, I like to just style one of them, and then once we're happy with it, we can duplicate it. So this one here, this is going to be our image. We're going to go up to style and change our background. Sorry, that's the button. Select the right thing. There we go. Get our little container inside here. We're going to have to style at the top, and we're going to go to background, click classic, and go ahead and pick our image. In this case, I'm just going to grab this image and select it. So you can see I can't really see it. A couple things need to happen. One is I need to bring it down in size. It's probably never going to be larger than probably the 768 size on my site. And I'm going to change its position to be center. And then I'm going to go down to display size and change it to cover. There we go. It's made it a little bigger. Don't worry about that just yet. I'm going to go to layout for a second. And it says min height. I'm going to change its min height to something. I'm going to change it to 300 pixels. So we can see it a little bit. There we go. And back to style for a sec. I want it to be slightly rounded. So I'm going to go into border and just add a border radius of 8. If I click away, you can see that it's got a little border radius. That's looking pretty cool. All right, let's go ahead and change our heading here. This is an H2, way too big. Let's go set it to an H3. And we're going to say this is our product photography. Got our little description here and our little button. And this button is going to say view. Make it nice and simple. And we'll just make it a little smaller. Now, a lot of people ask, how do you change the size of buttons? In the Pro version of Elementor, there's actually an override for button size, but we don't need it. You can actually go into typography, click edit here, and the actual size of this is, believe it or not, it's going to be based on two factors. One is the text size. If I set 14, or if I set it way bigger, it's going to grow. Let's say it's 14, nice and small. The next thing I'm going to do is padding. So right now it doesn't look like it's set, but if I set this to 0, you can see what I mean. It's going to bring it way down in size. So I can actually start changing this, and it'll change the size of my button. Now, normally what you would do is turn this off, and you'd also have a little bit higher on the left and the right. Well, it makes them look a little bit more balanced. It looks like I have text in front of this. I don't, and I don't have an icon, so it's kind of funny. I'm going to go ahead and just bring these up a little bit. But I'm going to bring left down just to try to center it. I'll try 16 and 15. Not too bad. Oh, no, it doesn't look. That looks fine. And maybe 10. Yeah, that's looking okay. Maybe 12. A little bit taller. Yeah, that's nice. So now it's looking okay. I'm going to go ahead and select this whole thing again. And right now it's got a gap between everything, and I don't really want it. I want to get rid of the gap because I'm going to control them individually using my spacer elements. Drop my spacer in here. Right. It's sometimes hard to move. I'm going to go ahead and use my editor on this side to move it. There we go. Now I'm going to rename this to image. This is going to be my image. And I'm going to rename this guy, which is the whole thing, to my portfolio piece. So I know they're individual pieces. Okay. And then I'm just going to go ahead and change these spacers a little bit. I'm going to bring this one down a little bit. Duplicate it, bring it in between. Again, probably easier to just move it in this side here. Bring it down a little bit to where I want it. And that's looking pretty solid. Awesome. Then I'm going to go to the container itself, the whole thing, and I want to style it as well. So I'm going to come in. It's concurrently not doing anything, so I'm going to go ahead and change the background of this. I actually don't think I want to set a background color, to be honest. Instead, what I want to do is just a little bit of a border. So we're going to go in ahead and we're going to set our border type to solid. And it's way too big, so we're going to set it to 1 pixel and set its color to like this really light gray color. And then give it a border radius, something a little bit bigger than the one inside. If I click away, you can start to see it. Yeah, it's looking a little old school, but that's okay. It also sometimes looks nice if you add under border a box shadow. Now, by default, the box shadows are always way too strong. So what I like to do is make sure that my vertical offset is on a little tiny bit. Bring my blur up to about a 20. Okay, and then we're going to set our color to a lot lighter, right around that 0.15 mark. Perfect. Now, if I click away, you can see it's looking a little better. In fact, I don't think I need the border line at all. So I'm going to go back into border here and get rid of it. Done. Click away. That looks cool. So last thing I need to do is, it's clearly way too tight. So it depends on what I want to do. If I want to go ahead and make sure that this touches, one thing I could do is go into advanced for a second and turn my padding to be off. That'll bring all the content in. If I click away for a second, you can see it'll be right up against the border, which is kind of cool. I like that actually. Or if I want to frame it in more, I could also put a number in. Oh, sorry, I added the wrong element. Make sure you edit the right element. Select it on the side here and set it to 20. So you can see I could also do this, so it feels like a card. So it really depends on what you would like. What you can always do is, I find at this point, I'm pretty happy. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to right click on here, duplicate, and right click and duplicate, and right click and duplicate. Maybe too many. Delete the last one. We'll do 3 across. We have 3 up. Of course, I'm going to change the images and stuff in these, but you can see that the images have stayed the same height, basically about a square. But now I can edit it, so I can say, okay, well, this first one, you know, what does it look like if this was a 0? And if it's a 0, then I'm going to have to pad these elements in. So in order to do that, the easiest way would be to add a container inside and then put them inside the container. Oops. So hard to move these elements. That's looking pretty good. I got 2 spacers up here and none inside. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that my other spacer's inside here, which again is hard to do. Making sure that it's there. So it should be here. There it is. Then I'm going to go ahead and click on this container here. So I got my spacers. I got heading, spacer, text editor, button, all that inside. I got my spacer on top of it. Now I'm going to click on this container here, and I'm just going to go ahead and remove the columns. I'll suck that back up. And then I can go into advanced, and I can really start adjusting this padding here. Bring it to 20, for example. Bring them in. Right. And I probably don't need the spacer anymore, so I'm just delete that for a second. But now I can fully compare and see if I just click this away for a sec. See what I like better. Do I like it better this way, or do I like it better this way? If I like it better this way, then all I have to do is delete these ones and duplicate this one. If I like it better this way, all you got to do, in which case I do, I'm going to delete the first one and just duplicate this one. So we have 3 again. Now, I might want to do a couple things. I might want to go ahead into this one and say, well, I want to text center align these. Maybe that'll look better. You can do that. Let's go ahead and just start centering stuff. Now, I can try to save some time by going to copy and do a paste style and a paste style and just keep doing that, right? Copy. Because I might actually come in here too, and I might say, well, I didn't like that color. I didn't like that formatting. You can come in and still fix that after the fact. All right, last but not least, I need to add some space above this and below this. I'm going to go ahead and click on this, go to advanced again, turn off my linking, and add my 50 on top, my 50 on bottom to be similar to that contact page we did in the other video. And that's looking pretty cool. Now, if I want 2 rows of this, that's actually pretty easy. All I got to do is under my container here is just duplicate the whole thing. Boom. Now I have 2 rows. If I want it to be tighter between these 2, what's actually controlling the spacing, if I take a look, for example, at this container here, into the layout, that's the gap. So if I set that to 0, you can see they would be touching, right? And look kind of funny. So it's actually set to 20. I can turn it up. I can set it down lower. But let's say, for example, I set it to 20. I now want to make sure there's 20 in between here. So it's pretty easy. All I'm going to do is make sure to go back to advanced here and set my bottom instead to be 10. And then click on this one and set the top of this one to be 10. There, 10 plus 10 is 20 every time I've looked at it. So There we go. I've got 6 up. Now, a couple other things you might want to take a look at is, of course, we're going to want to change our buttons, change our images to be the same. The other thing is if I had different lengths, oops, I'm sorry. I had different lengths of, I should edit it over here, shouldn't I? But it had different lengths, for example, and this was only, 2 lines, you can see that this button is floating. Now to solve that problem, it's a little bit more advanced. What I need to do is going into here, I want to go ahead and go space between, which would bring it that way, but you can see it's spreading it out here, which might not be good. I'd actually have to go into container, drop a container in, and move these back inside the container again. And then it would actually, I could control it and make sure all my spacing's in there, everything's set up again, and I can make sure that these line up each time because I have my outer container set to space between. But if I don't mind, in this case, for the essence of time, I'm just going to set it back to where it was and be okay if it's not the same height. It's looking good. All right, let's take a look at what that looks like on tablet. Responsive mode on. Let's go to tablet. As you can see, it doesn't look great. So what I might want to do is underneath this section here, go to layout, for example. I might want to go ahead and change it to this way. It's a little bit more difficult to just put 2 up. I could try turning wrapping on. It's probably not going to be what I want it to do. It's a lot more difficult to turn this into a 2 up. I don't have control over that, unfortunately. So the best, honestly, that I'm going to do here is do this. And then same down in here. Go ahead and do this as well. Layout and stack them. So that way they're stacked on all sizes. Just make sure you test it. Make sure you look good. Make sure it looks good to you. But that's looking pretty good. Very cool. And that's it.